Hello and welcome to this edition of the Airport News Show, a half-hour program about the Jacksonville Aviation Authority. I'm Debbie Jones, Community Relations Administrator. On today's program, it's all about holiday travel. Tips and suggestions to make your trip through Jacksonville International Airport a little less stressful and maybe a little enjoyable. So to get us started, I want to introduce my very special guest, Mr. Ed Goodwin, who's the Federal Security Director for the Transportation Security Administration at JIA. Welcome.
Thank you, Debbie.
And next to him is Miss Lucia Dahlia, a customer service agent with Southwest Airlines. Welcome.
Thank you, Debbie.
Well, we're once again back into the busy holiday travel season coming up. So Ed, can you help us, give us some good suggestions for those passengers that just don't travel a lot, or maybe only once or twice a year, what they can do before they even leave their house to get ready to come to the airport and go through security screening?
And you stated it just right, Debbie. What they do before they come to the airport is really going to make a big difference in how they get through the airport and how enjoyable that their travel experience can be, because sometimes holidays can be tough, but if they do their homework and they get prepared to come, then they can certainly have a much better time. And I would tell them most people do have an internet availability. The first place to go is www.tsa.gov, G-O-V. And on that website is a section for travelers. And you know, most people do have some little unique situation that normally crops up while they're traveling. If they have any questions on the website, answers every question they could possibly have about, you know, their maybe unique circumstance and what to expect when they go to the airport.
Now, some of those unique circumstances might include if you have a disability, or if you have a medical device, or if you're traveling with children, or formula and things like that. All that is covered at the website?
Correct, and that's mainly the things we get around the holidays. Well, what if I'm traveling with medication? What about my disabilities? What about my CPAP machine? What can I bring? Or, you know, can I bring my rhubarb pie through the checkpoint in order to bring to grandmom's house in Cleveland? Questions like that, they're all on there. What you can bring, what you can't bring, and then what to expect. And if you do that first, you're going to have a much better time at the airport.
And of course, one of the primary things related to your carry-on bags going through security screening is 311. So can you explain briefly what 311 is? And I actually have a little show and tell while you're talking about it.
Well, for the most part, 311, 3 stands for ounces. It's really 3.4 ounces, and that's kind of the standard size in Europe and the United States for small travel type items, such as deodorant and things like that you see in that bag. Then the 1 stands for a 1-quart baggie, which that one is right there. And don't fret if you don't have one. We have them at the airport to give to you if you're short of one. And then 1 means we'd like you only have 1 of those in that bag. So just remember that, you know, that's really all you would need for a short-term trip. If you're going on a longer trip, hopefully you'll have a check bag, some check baggage, and then in that case, those types of things need to go in your check bag anyway. But for short-term trips, you wouldn't need a large amount of any one of those items, shampoo, things like that. So again, 3.4 ounces, 1-quart bag, and then really 1 per passenger in order to keep our throughput at the checkpoint going.
And so it's important to have your bag ready and available before you get to the airport, so that everything is all ready, consolidated, and you don't have to do that when you get to the airport.
Correct. We've all been there and seen people like that that are struggling right there in the line and trying to get things, and then other passengers are getting a little frustrated behind them because they haven't really done a good job preparing to go through the security checkpoint line. So, but if it's a carry-on bag, it's on your outside of your bag, you know you're going to take it right out and have it inspected right away. That just makes the process so much faster, you know, for everybody.
Okay, Lucia, from an airline's perspective, what could passengers do before they leave their house to help them transition through the airport, the check-in process with the airline?
Well, yes, the most important thing would be to check with the individual airlines' websites and with the individual airline to find out what their baggage allowance policy is. For example, on Southwest Airlines, you're allowed to have 2 bags checked free, and they would have to be 50 pounds or less each bag. So that would be the most important thing, to find out what the weight limits are for the bags. And also making sure that you do have name tags, name identification tags on all your bags checked and carry-on, and including a cell phone number to make sure that if the tag comes off the bag, then we're able to identify the bag and contact you. And you're allowed one carry-on plus a personal bag, which would be like a purse or a briefcase. And we do recommend, a very important thing is to have medication and keys as part of your carry-on baggage only. Do not put those in checked bags. A couple of other things you can do ahead of time to prepare for your trip is to check in online. Most airlines offer online check-in. For example, on Southwest Airlines, you can check in 24 hours ahead and have your boarding pass ahead of time. And this way, if you only have carry-on bags, you can proceed, directly to the gate.
Very good. I know there were some other things, but we'll probably get back to some of those. But I wanted to highlight some of the important things you said as far as knowing what the bag fees would be for that particular airline, except for Southwest, but knowing the weight. And because I guess you've had situations where people show up at the airport and their bags weigh too much, or I know we've seen it where people are trying to repack or surprised if their airline charges fees and they didn't check beforehand. So it goes back to being prepared. So assuming everybody got prepared, they've checked in online and they've made it through the ticket counter, and now they're coming up to the security screening. They've got their bag. What else do they need to do to prepare to go through the security checkpoint?
There's a bunch of new issues at TSA as far as equipment goes, but the biggest thing before they get there is identification. They have to have proper identification. It's about a year old, but for those that may have traveled last year or the year before, they're not familiar with what identification. We're a little bit stricter now on what we allow for identification. However, there's about 12 items that we do allow. But again, TSA.gov goes through the entire list of what's acceptable identification. If you don't have that, then we are going to have a tough time getting you clearance to fly, and hopefully we'll get it done in time in order for you to fly. But it behooves you to take a little time, make sure you have proper ID with you in order to get through the checkpoint.
Now, do the airlines also have some kind of a thing on their website that talks about proper ID that they'll need?
Yes, on the individual websites. We also have a link from our website to the TSA website as well.
Okay. So there's really, whether you go to your airline or you go to TSA, that you can get that information.
Yes, there's
a
whole section of traveling tips, like tools for travel and then traveling tips. And then you can be linked to the TSA website as well if you have questions.
Well, that makes it much easier. So what happens? They've got their proper ID, then what happens?
Well, again, there's a lot of new things at Jacksonville Airport that are really good for traveling passengers. One, we have a dedicated family lane, so if you are traveling with small children, things like that, so sometimes, that can be a tough experience in itself, traveling like that. We have a family lane where nobody's going to hurry up there, that everybody knows it's family, it's stressful, and everybody will help you through that line. So if you're with family members, kids, things like that, please pick the family lanes. There's plenty of signage. Just take time to read the signs that are at the checkpoint. If you're not in a family lane and you're going through one of the other lanes, again, it's maybe reading some signage. Have everything, know what you're going to take off, whether it's going to be your shoes. If you have bulky items like a sport coat or overcoat, that's going to have to come off. As you're standing in line, just pre-plan how you're going to get all this done. Quickly get through the line and then out the other side.
Okay. Well, I know some of the other things that people, during the holiday seasons, there's a lot of unaccompanied minors. And, of course, they have to be screened just like every other passenger. So if somebody's sending a minor to grandma's house unaccompanied, what is the process for unaccompanied minors, starting with the airlines?
Yes, well, again, you would check with the individual airlines and to see what the age requirements are. With Southwest, you would be age 5 through 11 and only on direct or nonstop flights. And now you're able to go online ahead of time and fill in all the information that you want, that we will require, which will be the guardianship, the guardians that are picking up, who's dropping off the child, names, addresses, cell phone numbers, and so you can fill all that out ahead of time and pay the unaccompanied minor fee. And you also make sure you give yourself plenty of time with the child to go through security. You'll be getting a gate pass. The guardian that's dropping off the child will get a gate pass and go through security and wait at the gate with the child until the flight is actually airborne. So.
And what about on the other side, the destination
On the other side,
side?
the same as well. We would advise the people meeting the minor to show up 45 minutes prior to the scheduled arrival, because the flights can make up time, and go to the airline ticket counter to get a gate pass to meet the minor right at the gate when the child comes off, and they'll be required to show government-issued valid photo ID.
Okay, in order to pick up the child,
exactly.
and as well as get a gate pass. And that gate pass allows that guardian to go through with the child,
Yes.
just like another passenger.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we only have a few minutes left, so I wanted to just talk just final comments. If you had one thing that you would like for passengers to know, what would that be from the TSA security screening side?
The two things I always say, one is make sure you unpack your bag before you start to pack the bag. We run into more issues at the checkpoint with people with things in their bag that they didn't know were in there from the last time, and most of that's ammunition, maybe a handgun, maybe things like that, that people just start packing your bag and never unpack their bag for the trip before. So unpack your bag before you pack it, and please come to the airport with a little bit of patience. That'll take you a long way in having a good time there.
Now, can people, I know there's a lot of hunters, can weapons and things be checked, and what are the guidelines for those items?
Oh yes, they would declare the firearm, and
At the ticket counter?
At the ticket counter,
okay.
yes. And then the individual airline would inspect. The most important thing is, that the firearm is not loaded, and you can bring ammunition, and there's a limit to that. For example, with Southwest would be 11 pounds, and they have to be in the original and approved containers. All that's on the website, so that has to be declared right at the first point of check-in.
So you can bring your weapon, you just can't carry it on with you. There are ways to help passengers get their items.
That can be a very
Travel.
expensive mistake.
Yes, I can imagine so.
Very
I
expensive.
can imagine so. And from the airline's perspective, what if you had one thing that you could tell all of your customers before they come to the airport, what would that one thing be?
Well, that would be to always make sure that your medication and your keys are part of your carry-on luggage.
And
Don't
why
ever
is that so important?
Well, in the event that there's a delay with getting your checked bag, you would need your medication and your keys if you go into your destination and you need your car keys and medication. So,
And those are just some things that you don't want to not be with.
not be without.
Out.
Exactly.
Exactly. Okay, well, some very good tips. Thank you so much. I know that these are the things that will really help passengers get through the whole process and say, hey, that wasn't so bad after all. And it all goes back to being prepared ahead of time.
It does.
So once again, Ed Goodwin, Federal Security Director with the TSA out at Jax, thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.
And Lucia Dahlia with the Southwest Airlines Customer Service Agents, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Your
It's a
tips
pleasure.
were so helpful.
Welcome.
Don't go away. We'll be right back with some more tips and suggestions to make your travel through Jacksonville International Airport a good one.
Is that thing getting closer? Look how high that thing's going. Look out there, look at the debris.
Give me the camera.
No, just drive, I've got it.
Zoom in, zoom in.
I can't believe this is happening.
Oh, what's the size of that thing?
It's everywhere.
Are you getting this?
Yeah, I've got it. What was that?
It's the National Guard.
How'd they get here so fast?
I don't know.
Pull over, pull over.
Do you have what it takes to head into the heart of the storm? Check out NationalGuard.com.
Hello and welcome back to the Airport News Show. On today's program, we're talking about holiday travel, tips and suggestions to make your trip through the Jacksonville International Airport a little less stressful and maybe even a little enjoyable. On the first segment, we talked about going through security checkpoint, being prepared, and the things you need to know to make that a lot easier. On this segment,